Becoming Fleece Force colour is the way that UK wool can come back into the fold, right into the trend again. I like using acid dyes. I like using pop colours, some real strong but contemporary colouring to really show what UK wool can do. I just want to give a quick tutorial on dyes really, and how to hand dye the wools so that you could potentially do it yourself. The key is preparation. So this is a pan. It's going to be a second runner dye. This is a pan of hot water. I've got a stove, I've got a craft room, I'm lucky to have that. But equally, you can have a stove outside, a gas stove, a bit of a barbecue, hot plate or stove. You can have that outside. I wouldn't recommend dyeing in a kitchen because dyes, it does get everywhere. I'm not going to use fabric to mop up excess dye. That will scrub down absolutely fine. And I do scrub down every time I dye things. Preparation's key. Things that you might want: a kettle to top up any heat in the water. You want your dye pot with an open lid, and you want gloves on. Tongs are really, really helpful. Be careful removing the lid because that residue is quite nasty. Don't have any food or drink near, actively near your dyeing. Withdraw that because they can be quite toxic. And that includes natural dyes as well. Have your graded wool ready. Your 14-gram dye pot takes approximately 400 grams of wool, but depending on the wool, depending on the dye colour, that varies massively. And one more thing, if you're using your main pan for the dyeing, there's Fern, so happy, have your tippy pans ready. The bucket is very heat resilient, so make sure your plastic bucket isn't going to melt in boiling temperature water. There's the first dye batch, emerald green. I'm going to do another emerald green dye to show you. It is trending right now. We've got so much emerald green on order, and I would love to be a jacquard stockist. They're just such lovely colours to look at. So you've got your hot water. It's not boiling, and I think that is safer as you're adding the dye. So I have hot water for safety. I add more the vinegar, any vinegar, but I wouldn't use coloured vinegar. Malt's okay, but I wouldn't use, say, red wine vinegar or anything that's too colourful, just in case it interferes. I've not tried that yet. But white wine vinegar, distilled vinegar, white vinegar, malt vinegar are all fine. Add that first. Give it a little stir. The pan is only stained, so there's no colour in the water. If I tip that water out, it would be clear. But the pan has stained. So when I change the colour to orange, say, I've got to cool the pan down and scour the pan to get rid of the residue, just in case. So this is emerald. And then just very, very carefully tip that in. Now, then you've got to test if the water is hot enough. So if I agitate this very gently, because you don't want the powder to become airborne and breathe that in. The water is almost hot enough, but you really want the water to be hot. So what I do is I boil a kettle and I just add boiling water, boiled water to the pan, just to then lift the temperature, and I've got the heat on full. Don't put the wool in until the pan is hot enough. Now there is all the dye dissolved, which is a good sign, because if the dye is dissolved and the steam is coming out the pan now, that means it is hot enough. Okay, now add your wool. So I'm just picking up graded bits. Great for yellow tipped wool, but don't use any wool with marker spray on. It doesn't come out. Don't use high veg matter wool. You can't get away with it. Now what I need to do is just be quite quick, because if I just drop that in, and all the dye will latch onto that little bit. So I'm just going to sit it on top, and then I'm going to get the rest and make a good panful. A small panful, shall we say. And I get my tongs and I bury it. I don't want to separate the curls too much and break the curls down, but try and separate the wool as far as possible, so you're definitely guaranteeing that all the colour goes into the wool. If this was jet black, I would only be using half the quantity of wool. And you can see that is already going to be a good result. You can see that's really taking on already. Now, the hotter the pan gets, there we are, more progress. The hotter the pan gets, the dye really starts to get inside the wool. Dare I put a bit more in? Because, so how do I know when I've got enough? I'm just going to start putting tiny bits in now. Right, so if I bury that and lift, and it starts to go lighter, then I know that I've reached my weight of wool that the dye is going to take. So you see that, how it's really starting to take on. But the pan still starts to get, the pan still has to get hotter. So again, I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. I can see the bubbles now, so that is a sure sign of heat. I'm going to put one more test in. Don't worry about the occasional big bit of veg matter. That can certainly be picked out after the drying as well. So that's in hot water. This has no excuse. Has it taken to the dye? I think it's fading. I think that is like, if I ran a second dye batch, then I'm going to get a turquoise where the dye actually splits. So I'm not going to risk it. If I want a consistent colour, I'm not going to risk it and add more wool. If you want the dye pot to split, so you've got bits of emerald going on to turquoise, then you add more wool than the dye pot can take. But I want a consistent colour. So I'm not going to risk it and add any more. That is really showing a very good consistent colour actually. The foam splits the colour as well, so I've got to take into account this video actually. But there, you can really start and see the consistency coming through. This bit here, it doesn't look as light as it is, that's the foam. But with there, that's better. With more heat, and I've still got 20 minutes for this dye colour to really get into the wool. So now, go to a different area, read a book, have a cuppa, but watch your pan, watch your wool. It's well, if it boils, it's not going to boil over. It doesn't have any froth, but you want to leave it 20 minutes. Then turn your heat off. If you feel like it's going to be hot 15 minutes in, if you feel like it's done its job 15 minutes in, just turn your heat off and leave it 5 minutes. But 20 minutes to really get that dye into the wool and let the vinegar do its job and set the dye. Then you've got some marvellous, beautiful, modern pop colour to get natural fibre UK wool into our modern world, or even a themed world of art and craft. Okay guys, 20 minutes is up. The heat is off. And look at that result. Oh my goodness. The curls hold the water, and they may be slightly darker at the tips of the curls, but that is such a beautiful, consistent, accurate emerald green. That little bit of veg matter, that'll just pick out at the end of drying or at any time. But that is perfect. Amazing for Halloween, amazing for Christmas. It is trending right now. Jacquard Acid Dye Emerald Green. Very accurate. And I think the colour on the wall is even better than what it says on the label.